to both of you. All right, let's go to the next question with Gail Hammonds.
Thank you. The City Council approved and then repealed residential electricity rate increases. Specifically, how can the city provide ample electricity to all customers while ensuring fair rates for residential and business users? And should the City Council reduce the amount that it transfers from the utility to the general fund, currently about $30 million a year, in order to mitigate the need for rate increases?
Mr. Petro, this one's yours, 90
Thank
seconds.
you. The primary responsibility of a public utility is to provide reliable service at reasonable rates. What happened with the utility rate increase was that we were provided with faulty data, which did not account for almost 25% of meters that do not produce any electricity in a given month, and consequently it set artificially low the baseline of where you started charging people. And that inordinately accelerated the rates and bumped people up into tiers that they shouldn't have been. When I found out that was a problem, it was in the public interest to change it and not to leave people with those rates, which were basically unfair. The second thing that happened in the intervening 6 months is that we have been trying to build a secondary source of power to the city, a second power plant, which we have been told by the Public Utilities Commission we need to have. And that plant is going to be delayed and take over 4 years instead of over 2 years. So the financing plan that was built into the rate structure was built to pay for this plant in 2 years. So it was like this. When you put those two together, it was possible to come up with a different rate structure that is more gradual for people. We are going to have to pay more for our rates. This should not be a discussion of business versus residential. We are all in this together. It is about paying much, much more for power, especially at peak times, and that's why we also have to look at conservation and how we consume, both on the residential and the business side.
Mr. Gardner, you have
Thank
90
you.
seconds.
As I indicated earlier, no one should have been surprised at the doubling and tripling of residential electricity bills. It's unconscionable that no one on the utilities board or the city council asked the simple question: if we adopt this rate structure, what will it make a typical bill look like? It would have been very easy to take representative bills from each of the rate classes and apply the new rate structure to it and see what the bills would look like. Then council could have said, this is acceptable, this is not acceptable. That should have been done, and it wasn't done. I find that very disappointing. Mr. Petro mentioned the power plant that is needed that is has been delayed. That's actually not a power plant, it's a transmission line and a substation. It has been delayed. We do need it. We've needed it for many years. It was one of the first projects I worked on when I went to the Edison Company in 1973. We still need that project. As far as the amount of money that is diverted from the utility to the general fund of the city, it is currently about $30 million. I think that may be on the high side. However, it is reasonable for the utility to contribute something to the general fund, because were we served by an investor-owned utility like the Edison Company, excuse me, they would pay a franchise fee to the city. And so a payment from our own utility to the city is essentially in lieu of a franchise fee.
Thank you. Mr. Petro, if you'd like to take 30 seconds.
Thank you. The power transmission project has been delayed because I have been a strong advocate that those lines will not come through the Santa Ana River lands. It needs to go up through Harupa, and that's why it's being delayed. I will always vote in favor of defending the public interest, and that's why, even if it makes me politically vulnerable to people saying a mistake was made, which I don't think that's the case, when it comes to will the public benefit, I will vote for that. My opponent is fond of saying he would do this, he would do that. My question would be on these rates, since he says he had all this information and all this knowledge, where was Mike?
Thank you. All right, your 30 seconds.
Thank you. The power transmission line project has two primary alternative routes. One comes down the Santa Ana River from an Edison substation that's actually located in the city of Colton. One taps into the existing statewide grid over in the Jurupa-Miraloma area. Both of those routes are required to be looked at under the California Environmental Quality Act. No one ever suggested that the route down the Santa Ana River is a preferable route. It's obviously intuitive that it is a secondary route. It's longer, it has higher environmental impacts, it's closer to the city. No one was suggesting that was the best route, and no mind has been changed. The conclusion was that the correct route has now been identified.
Okay, we're out of time. Thank you.